Next, we will be talking about universal design. What is universal design? A concept that aims to ensure the same level of standards everywhere to all users, especially people with disabilities. So, with a presentation titled, "Is Universal Design Helping Destinations Become Accessible to All?" Please join me in welcoming Executive Director of the Open Doors organization, Mr. Lipp.
Well, welcome everybody, distinguished guests. It's such a privilege to be here today. I feel honored and in awe of what I see going on in the world. I know that coming from the United States, we see a lot in design and accessibility, what's going on, but I almost feel as though we're behind. As I sit here and listen to everything that's going on in Jordan, here in Dubai, I feel like we have some catching up to do in the United States. We've been doing it a lot longer, but maybe we haven't been doing it better. And being better, I think, would be a good goal for us as well. I'm with Open Doors organization. We're a nonprofit in the United States, and we work in accessibility and travel and tourism. We're most noted for our work in research on how much people with disabilities spend when they travel, and then also working in design and inclusion in other aspects. I myself, I'll just say I think if I go here, there we go. I'm the executive director and founder of Open Doors. I have a disease that caused a tumor on my spinal cord in my thoracic T4. So I am an incomplete para. I walk with an orthotic, special brace, and my cane, but my line of paralysis starts up here in mid-chest, so I have a lot of balance issues. I founded Open Doors about 24 years ago, really to help me in my job. I was in the computer business, and in the 90s and early 2000s, when it was really good before the so-called bubble, I was traveling for work, and I realized I couldn't travel to many cities in the United States because the airport wasn't accessible. So there's this enormous line of getting from our homes to our final destination. And every single part of that, we are very in tune with, people with determination, people with disabilities. So we know exactly what we need to do to get from my house to the airport, and from the airport to my hotel here, all the way from Chicago. Because we plan this out because there are oftentimes gaps in the service. And transportation, getting just from my house to the airport, might be the biggest hurdle that I have. While I get to the airport might be very accessible, right? The airports these days, the design is amazing, bathrooms, but I may not be able to get there. And that's a gap in the service and what we provide. I'll give you an example. I think that in the world, we need to consider the experience. And that experience has to do with design, and not just the physical design, but the mental design on what's going on, the thought process on what we're doing. I give a good example. A few years ago, I was at a training class for United Airlines at Walt Disney World. And they were teaching the United Airlines folks and the companies that push wheelchairs, we were all there together, on the Disney type of way. And they said that they like the Disney experience. That's the experience. When you get to Disney, you can't, there's no calories in the food. Nothing has a price tag, right? You're in this little bubble in Disney. And they start that bubble at the airport because they pick you up at the airport in the Disney shuttle. So when you get on that bus from the airport to Disney, your experience starts. My question is why does it start when I get on the bus? Why didn't it start at the airport? Why didn't the person who's pushing me around in the airport say, wow, you're going to Disney? Awesome. Here are some of the things you could do. Here are some of the things I hear other people like. Why does the experience not start until we get into the Disney bus? We should be part of the experience. We're part of travel and tourism, in aviation, airports, restaurants, hotels, we should all want to be part of that experience, right? Because when people with disabilities do show up, we should really be in tune with what they're doing. And one of the most important things that I think that really is going to help benefit and the change that I've seen in Dubai over the last, this is my 4th visit, and the change that I've seen since I think I was at the first international conference on tourism, before COVID, I believe that was a little bit before COVID, to now, what I see are many more people with disabilities out in public, and I think that we do that because we can get there. I like coming to Dubai because I know it's accessible. It's a very easy trip for me. I know it's accessible. But the design plays such an important role, and here's why. On my flight in here today, or yesterday, there was a little bit of difficulty with my scooter. Because of the size, the weight becomes an issue, right? All of those things. But we didn't necessarily build the airport thinking in mind that, wow, the ground handler is going to have a system to bring our chairs up. And what does that look like? And how do we communicate that process? Bring a high lift over. When do we need the high lift and when do we bring it over? Because that system has to work perfectly for me to travel seamlessly, right? So we have to think of the design down to the really small details, such as what is our vertical movement in an airport? And when we're looking at hotels, I know my hotel here is really accessible. I didn't get an accessible room because I don't like to take those because I'd like to save those for somebody who might really need them. So I know they're larger and all of those things, but I usually like to stay in a standard room rather than the accessible room. And I know this, that everywhere I go in the world, I think more and more, it's very important when you're designing and building these projects to include us. You know, Majid, you have such a great resource right here locally. You could go to him and find out anything. If you include them in the design plans when they build the hotel and you build the hotel room, if we're here, we'll help. Because who knows what a hotel room's orientation and what it looks like to somebody who's blind? Not me. I can only guess. But I could tell you walking into this hotel last night with my eyes shut would have been very daunting. The big lobby, all that. So how are we thinking about the design to do that? Now I know here, one of the great things is that if I was blind and I walked into this hotel, somebody would be there immediately. Because just because the built environment is not fully accessible doesn't mean that the people don't understand what access is like. Because maybe there's no wayfinding on the hotel app for this hotel. So somebody who's blind has to walk in, they'll have no idea where they're going. There may not be Braille anywhere. If there is, how do you find where that's at? So instead, we have customer service. And when a person who is blind would walk into this hotel tonight, there will be somebody there to greet them, offer them assistance, and orientate them to the whole hotel. Why don't we do that at the airports as well? Airport apps are really important. That's part of the good design, is designing things that people can use, not just the built environment. While the built environment's super important, it goes just beyond that, and it really goes into what people are thinking, and including us in on those design measures is the only way to find the perspective of the community. If we're there in the beginning, right now at Open Doors, including one that I just saw for Austin Bergstrom Airport in Austin, Texas. We're working on 7 airports globally on accessibility because the airport is oftentimes the gateway to a city. It's the first thing somebody with a disability is going to know when you hit the ground is your airport. And if I can't get around your airport, I'm going to really have low expectations for everything else. I just came back from the Dominican Republic. And there's a new airport in Punta Cana, very popular. But I saw, and it just finished, and I saw some things that needed to be changed almost right away. But they understand that they might have built it wrong, and they had no fear to change it because they know that this is the gateway to Dominican Republic. People come for travel and tourism. This is the bread and butter of their country. And the airport really needs to show off what you can expect in the rest of the country. Because if you land somewhere and you can't get transportation to and from your hotel easily, then you automatically think to yourself, wow, this is going to be a really tough trip. So when I think of good design, what do I think of? Well, I think of the lever to open a door, right? Now we use levers. In the United States, we still use doorknobs too. But a doorknob is not accessible. You have to have dexterity. A handle is easy, and a handle looks better than a doorknob anyway, but we still use doorknobs all the time, and it has no good design in it, and it's no less expensive or more expensive than a lever handle. And so we have to think about what's better in design, not the knob, the lever. And I think that, along with, I think of carpeting, flooring, right? For wheelchair users, any padding on the carpeting is going to be difficult. Or how about designs in the carpet that have lines or designs that are grooved in there? It's very difficult to wheel on those. And Majid's, his wheelchair and my scooter, you have a hybrid, his chair and my scooter. Why? What his chair has now is a new addition. Those adapters that make them scooters are great. I use a scooter and not a manual chair, but I want to change over to what he has. This way I have more, I have better design, right? I can go from scooter, where I need it for long distances, to where I'm in a manual chair, which is less size, and I can turn easily. But in the United States, my insurance company wouldn't pay for something like that. They would only pay for something like this. So, but look at the design right there. Just the design of his chair and my scooter, because chairs and scooters weren't designed well the first time. Otherwise, we wouldn't need both. We would have a hybrid that would be easy for everyone. But now there's lots of companies making what he has now, the scooter. There's lots of attachments coming. I think that's the future. You'll probably see a lot less of these and more of those because it's better design. And it would be better for me to have that design, but as you can see, my insurance company doesn't pay for it, so it makes it very difficult for me to actually use something like that. So when I think of good design, those are the things I think about. Vertical movement, curb cuts. If you go to a curb cut, you'll see everybody goes to the curb cuts nowadays. And what really has to do with accessible design in tourism is very important because people with disabilities, I know I'm a perfect example. My family and I, my kids and my wife, we go to the Dominican Republic and we stay at the same hotel every year. And people ask why. It's because we know what we're getting into. My wife and I, we want to stay somewhere else to try another resort. But my children say no because they want to stay where they know they don't have to deal with me. Right? They want to go on vacation. They don't want to have to worry about dad and the swimming pool and the restaurant. And my son, he's 20 years old, and he knows that everywhere we go, if there's stairs, he has to lift it. So he wants to go where he doesn't have to work. So we go to the same resort, and I think a lot of it is because that's their mindset as well. My children, they see what goes on, they absorb everything, and they understand good design not by understanding it by real life experience in the lived life. And I think that's really important when talking to design. In open doors, we believe two things drive accessibility: language and design. If you understand language and you understand design, accessibility comes naturally. I'll give you a good example of understanding accessibility. The cruise industry, and if you get a chance to speak to Ron from Royal Caribbean, they understand it. Better than any industry, aviation, better than hotels, the cruise industry knows that people with disabilities, we're coming on their cruises. And they want to make it so what can we do more of, right? Not just, well, I can't get off in Belize because the dock isn't accessible in Belize, so I have to stay on the ship. Well, maybe give a discount for a massage or a special wine tasting or a special meal service or something. There's other things that we can do, and Royal Caribbean really understands that, including shore excursions, and the cruise industry really gets that. And one thing that's really interesting is in design, Ron will explain to you how they must have 30 classes of rooms on a ship, but each class of rooms has an accessible design in there, almost every class, from the most expensive suites that are 20, 30,000 US euros a night to the regular rooms on the interior of the cabins. So they have it everywhere. They understand the market. They know we're coming. And one of Ron's goals at Royal Caribbean is not just that we're coming, it's what more, now that I'm there, can they get me to do? And that's all about design. And they've influenced the ports that they go to by saying, hey, we'll come there if it's accessible. It's more attractive than going to a port that isn't accessible. And the older we all get, the more that's going to become important, because as I spoke to somebody earlier, the older we get, the more money people usually have. And I'll just quickly show my one slide here. If I can get her up there. Well, I'll say on the first slide, I'm a member of the United States TSA, Transportation Security Administration. Of the governing body of the TSA, they invited to have somebody with a disability there to represent diversity, equity, and inclusion. And now we have an entire work group at the TSA just working on accessibility at the checkpoints. And you wouldn't believe how much talk there is around service animals, dogs coming through. It's a very big deal in the checkpoints. I'm also a member of the United States Department of Commerce, the U.S. Travel and Tourism Advisory Board, and there too, we have a committee working on, a working group working on accessibility. And we're working on accessibility all throughout travel in the United States, including marketing to people with disabilities, so that we have more people come to the United States with disabilities as we become an accessible destination, which is what everybody should want to do ultimately, is become an accessible destination. I think that's important. Real quick, because I know that I'm out of time, I won't go over these too much, but in the United States, we did a study, which I think we should do here, on how much people with disabilities spend when we travel. And the numbers are staggering. The important thing when you see this top part right here, this shows you how much we spend, 58.7 billion, up from 34 billion when we travel. That's just one person traveling, and we don't travel alone. But the market people don't want me to put that in there, because then it makes the number look too big. But as we heard today already, that number is big. It is, and it's growing and growing. And older adults oftentimes don't self-identify. My father, he's hard of hearing. He's losing his vision. He's 84 years old, and he doesn't have a disability. That's what he tells me. I don't have a disability. He walks with a walker. You help all, I'm like, Dad, if you don't stand up and want to be counted, then you'll never be counted in there. But that's a general travel. The money is huge. We heard earlier about the billions of dollars. And it is. You should be excited about this, because it's an exciting time. We have an opportunity for growth and change and to help people at the same time. You should really be excited about doing it. This shows numbers by air, hotels, and travel by cruise. The interesting thing, again, in the cruise numbers is that people with disabilities, we actually cruise more often than the general public. And if we cruise once, we're likely to go back. And they understand that, and that's why you see such good service and you see such good accessibility on cruise ships when we can't even get it in necessarily a hotel sometimes. So to end, I just want to say that I think it's really important. In the United States, we have a saying. It says, nothing about us without us. So here we have plenty of people to include on accessibility, so there should always be somebody in there. And I'm looking forward to the summit in 2025. We have an event at Open Doors called Universal Access in Aviation. It's in its 23rd year. It will be held in Seattle in September of 2024, and you're all welcome to come visit. You learn it. We bring the airlines, the airports, the wheelchair companies, the manufacturers, everybody together at once so we can talk about accessibility in aviation. But once again, I've been doing this for 24 years, so I feel like kind of the old guy in the room. But from what I see, I'm excited. I can't wait to come back. I know that I can't wait to tell other people, and now you can fly direct from almost any city in the United States to Dubai. So the world is open, and hopefully you'll see more and more of us travel, and always think about accessibility in everything that you do from the very beginning. Thank you all. If you have any questions, feel free to ask or talk to us later. Thank you very much for having me.